as printed on the marshalled list.
My Lords, may I thank my noble friend and his officials for the time and attention they have given this matter since report stage. And I know that officials have worked very hard, including over weekends, so I'm truly grateful to them. I also want to pay tribute to the Media Minister, Julia Lopez. When I first met her to discuss my amendment 3 weeks ago, she gripped the issue immediately, and I do believe it's because of her energy and support for the clear objective of protecting press freedom that the government has got behind her in bringing forward amendments in such a short space of time. So Julia Lopez does deserve much credit. Turning to the government's amendments, for me, the best way to understand the government's proposed way forward is to see it in 2 stages. Stage 1 deals with the block to foreign powers owning, controlling or influencing UK news. Stage 2 is the exemption for investment in UK news from legitimate foreign state investment funds. And both of these stages, or parts if you like, are important to the sustainability of the UK news industry. So let me start with my view on the government's amendments as they relate to stage 1. I support them, and so, noble Lords will have seen I have not retabled my own amendment. I'm satisfied that they are in line with my noble friend's promises from the dispatch box that he made 2 weeks ago. And in my view, they deal with the legal uncertainty that the Redbird IMI proposed deal to buy the Telegraph titles and the Spectator has exposed when it comes to the involvement of foreign powers in our news media. It's worth restating that, as concerning as the UAE financial backing via IMI in that case is, the issue is bigger than that one deal and is a matter of principle. So as I understand the government amendments and what my noble friend has just said, the government has broadened the definition of foreign power, and any individual or entity now captured by that definition will be blocked 100% from owning, controlling or influencing our newspapers or news magazines. And these provisions will take effect immediately that the bill gets Royal Assent. So once completed, stage 1, as I might describe it, protects press freedom from the control or influence of foreign powers. Stage 2, or part 2, which provides the exemption for the legitimate indirect foreign state investment funds to make passive investments in our news industry, will be covered by secondary legislation to follow once the bill is enacted. Now, this exemption is important for obvious reasons, and as my noble friend has already said, the news industry needs investment just like any other, and we must not exclude perfectly legitimate foreign state investors like sovereign wealth funds or state pension funds that are not directly government controlled. As I said at report stage, foreign state investment funds such as the Norwegian Sovereign Fund already invest in some of our news organisations. Now, I think I heard my noble friend set out the government's commitment to the threshold for this category of foreign state investors in the news industry as set at 5%. And it's worth just reflecting on that, because at 5% it is still above the approach of such funds which typically invest around 1 to 2% in corporations with any sector, yet it is a lower threshold than what is permitted by the CMA to prevent material influence, reflecting the fact that we are seeking to prevent any foreign state influence in UK news. So I welcome the 5% threshold. Obviously, we've yet to see the details of the secondary legislation, and Parliament will have to scrutinise that carefully before it can be approved. And I welcome my noble friend's commitment to engage Parliament before it is that those regulations are actually laid. But again, I think I heard my noble friend correctly, but if he could just reassure me again that my understanding is correct, that any individual or entity blocked at stage 1 will not qualify for exemption at stage 2. So in other words, the exemption at stage 2 is for an entirely different kind of entity to that which will be blocked at stage 1. As to other things, I'm pleased that my noble friend has reminded the House that any live regulatory case will be captured by the new legislation once it's enacted. And I'm also pleased that he has confirmed foreign state ownership of online UK news websites will be dealt with swiftly, also via secondary legislation and the affirmative procedure once the government has completed its consultation. There does remain the question of foreign state ownership of our commercial public sector broadcasters and other commercial UK news channels. That said, of course, there are some regulatory protections already in broadcasting because of the Ofcom licensing regime, but it would nonetheless be helpful if my noble friend could say if the department is reviewing policy in this area also. But in conclusion, I would just make 3 simple points. First, none of these legislative changes affect general foreign investment in or ownership of UK newspapers or news magazines, which is and will remain very welcome. Second, the exemption for legitimate investment for foreign state investment funds is important to the financial sustainability of our news industry. And finally, just to be clear, the UK remains open for business in the same way it's always been. All that Parliament is doing by these changes is ensuring that our fundamental principle of press freedom is not up for sale. So I look forward to my noble friend's replies to my questions. We will, of course, review the secondary legislation carefully once it's ready, but overall I commend my noble friend for the government's work in recent weeks and thank him for it.
My Lords,